Not quite sure if I want to go in chronological order. I think I'm going to start a little like that, but I'm going to redact bits of information for safety purposes. The one in 2018, that's when I briefly became a manager, but I had to work my way up to that position. And boy, was it something. Um, I didn't think or know what I was getting into in terms of this job. It was a shoe retail shop, and I was selling shoes, of course, and running the register at the same time. And this should have been a red flag on the first day that I started working there. That I guess you can say assistant manager to the store. Like there's a store manager who was there, let's say 5 to 6 days a week. And she was like in her late 70s. And okay, she had prior managerial experience. And her assistant manager, on the first day that I started working there, I don't know if it was for a means of trying to make for conversation. And it was pretty freaking obvious that I was in my 20s, like, duh. But just on the first day, the assistant manager, who was a middle-aged man, asked me if I was married. How appropriate. At first, I was like, no. Like, I've never been asked something like that in that context out of the blue. And it kept getting weird from there. I'd say a few weeks in. Yeah, a few weeks to a month and a half in. One of the coworkers, who's in her late teens, early 20s, talks about how the same guy, the assistant manager, said something fairly inappropriate to her, like a little before I was hired in. And she was talking about something that had to do with gallon jugs, like just casually talking to another coworker. And this assistant manager dude popped in and said, "Oh, something about your jugs?" And I'm like, he said that to you? And mind you, this girl, young, has like a slim, thick build. Like, you know. and and this wasn't like fake. Like no BBL, no nothing, just like naturally shaped like that. And it started to look more and more like this guy really didn't know how to not be inappropriate. A few months later, down the road, we get a new employee in, and she is model-esque, height, gorgeous, easy to get along with. She's got everything in her corner. And what was really cool was I found out through like conversation with this new worker that she's from the same area that I'm from. And that's how we really connected. And it was really sweet. Unbeknownst to me, this individual is a bit not in a bad way, just a bit hot-headed, like gets a little ahead of themselves. This individual runs into the assistant manager's inappropriate talk and also belittling talk. This guy comes out of nowhere with some stuff that's clearly inappropriate and also clearly not warranted. I mean, this individual not only has the appearance of an adult, but she's clearly an adult. Like, she's just a few years older than me, I think by 3 years or so. Married with kids, I believe, as well. And she kind of confided in me a little bit, and we tried to support each other and all of that. And there were times where you wouldn't think so, but the main head store manager, who is an older lady, bit of a shit starter, gossip fiend, and oh boy, she you can tell there's some bitterness underlying this person's attitude, especially with what she has mentioned about, oh my God, the amount of personal stuff that was relayed. Because there was the main floor, the sales floor, and then there was a back room where the stock was. You would take a break in the back room and all that as well, and people would be talking the talk. And one of the things that I found out about the store manager that I thought was unfortunate at first glance was that she talked about how a lot of her family doesn't want to talk to her anymore. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Um, Come to find out, even her grown adult kids don't want to talk to her much because she's a shit stirrer and not very nice. Like, this is an individual who, unfortunately, allowed her bitterness and bitter side to really grab hold of anything interpersonal. And mind you, forgot one little detail as well. It's kind of important. Both the store manager and the assistant manager are practically partners in crime, so to speak. They took care of an establishment prior to this little shoe store, and you didn't hear anything further than that. And it's like, okay, you went from one little managerial venture to another. What happened to the previous? Sus. It was sus. Very much. And between this, and excuse me for saying this, old biddy and the assistant manager, both managers, so to speak, were impossible in their own ways. It was wild. The amount of shit talk the store manager had to the amount of things that would set people off. Even, oh my God, I almost forgot. Even customers were getting pissed off left, right, and center from the assistant manager. And you know a toxic workplace when you're not really incentivized to report jack shit. On average, if there's something not too nice in the workplace, you can report it to your manager. Whoops, tried that consecutively and it got batted down to the point where employees like myself would go over the store manager's head and go to the district manager. Yeah. This is a guy who came into each store location and would check up on things, blah, blah, blah. And I would kind of neatly touch on that kind of stuff. And the guy would be like, thank you for telling me, blah, blah, blah. And mind you, no one thought of contacting HR. I'll get to that in a bit. So, anyways, months went by and the shenanigans of shit would go on and on and on in the store. There would even be good employees dropping away. And those who were still sticking by were, you know, realizing their efforts of trying to talk to the store manager were just not. So anytime the district manager came by, it would be nearly a group circled around like all the associate positioned employees when the store manager's not around, let alone the assistant manager, would be like huddled around the district manager if he visited or anything, being like, oh, this happened, that happened, the assistant manager did this, did that, the store manager is not even trying, she's even being a shit talker, blah, blah, blah. I remember that day. It was kind of impressive. And the district manager's like, hold on. Okay, one at a time, please. And he had like clipboard and pen on hand and stuff. And after months of like so much shit, and on top of that, it was a store where customers would come in and with ease steal shit. Theft and losses ran rampant in that damn store as well. Location was not very nice either. And it just drove me insane. I think, yeah, it was like a month before I quit. I became what was known as a manager slash key holder. And I pretty much worked open till close. And I would have the store keys and I would get there to the shop. And a little bit before I got there, I would always get some coffee from the coffee shop next door. And opening, I think, was at 9 or 10 a.m., something like that. And I would be making sure the registers were all evenly counted up before I unlocked the doors. And I would make sure, everything's cleaned up and tidy. I would have extra stuff to work on as a manager when I was in the position of a manager, and I was actually happy with it because I wasn't just stock still at a register. I was, doing more. And then that was pretty good within a month's duration. And then one morning, it's around 10 or 11 a.m., just right when we opened shop, I was there by myself with the assistant manager. And I was going back and forth in between getting stock out on the shelves and looking through the back room and all of that, blah, 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 and taking care of a few customers. It was actually pretty easy that morning. It's a nice fall morning. And I caught that grody son of a bitch of an assistant manager in the back room watching porn on his phone. I'm not making that up. It was enough that this guy was a shit-stirring, inappropriate talking piece of work. And then I'm like, okay, that does it. I'm calling everyone. I called the store manager and she's like, I can't come in today. I have a headache. Hangs up on me. I called the district manager. There's a 1-800 number for HR hanging up in the office. Just call them. I called HR. Yeah, thanks for letting us know. We'll look into it. Click. And typically, if you were to get a response like that, 10 times out of 10, it's like a fuck off sort of thing. Duh. And customers were starting to really crowd around that freaking front register. System manager was like, hey, can you help me with these customers? And I'm just like, bye. And I just left. I straight up walked out. Wasn't going to have that shit anymore. It was fun for a while. I mean, I started, let's see, March. I spent 8 months working at that little shop. Never again. I mean, it was good experience in retail and a month's worth of managerial work. Um, what the fuck? uh, yeah. But that was my first experience working in retail, but also working in that kind of like means of trying to be a manager and stuff. It was almost trippy. But yeah, thanks for listening. I might do another one. Wacky Tales of Retail. I can call it that. It's a neat little name. Until next time.